Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 P500 Vote Night. My name is Gail Rogers, and I have the pleasure of being the CEO at the Geelong Community Foundation. I wish to begin by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nations, the traditional owners of the land where I'm situated tonight, and I pay my respects to the local people for allowing us to have our event on their land and the lands wherever you might be this evening. And I acknowledge all elders past, present and future. My sincere thanks to you for attending our 4th year celebrating the success of P500. And I also thank you for embracing technology. Maybe for some of you, this might be your first webinar, and here's hoping for strong internet connections tonight. A very different event to our previous celebrations, and for those of you who have attended in the past, we miss being with you personally tonight, but we're grateful for technology and the opportunity to present this year's program to you live in your homes. So I invite you to sit back and relax, have a cup of tea or maybe an Austin's wine and enjoy the presentations tonight. But before I hand over to the chairperson of the P500 committee, Simon Loader, I'd just like to acknowledge a couple of people and thank a couple of people who have supported the program along the way. Firstly, our P500 committee. What a great, diverse and passionate team. And on behalf of the board and our small staff team, my sincere thanks for the time and energy you have invested in our campaign. We have a paramedic, we have a banker, lawyer, financial planners, a town planner, we have consultants, a retiree, a photographer, a builder and a marketing manager who've all actively and enthusiastically contributed to the success of P500. We're always keen for new committee members each year, so if you are interested in supporting our program and joining the committee, please get in touch. I'd love to have a chat. A big welcome to our donors, our P500 donors. We had 174 $500 donations this year, and in fact 4 of those donations came in after we announced the grant of $45,000. So this year the grant will actually be $46,000 to the community organisation who receives the most votes this evening. It's not every day that a small group of like-minded people have the opportunity to give away $46,000. And I thank you for joining us and sharing in the vision that we had 4 years ago for the development of collective giving here in Geelong. I'd like to acknowledge the 40 donors who've been on the journey with us since 2017, and also welcome the new 50 new donors who joined us for the first time for this campaign this year. I'd also like to acknowledge Margaret and Jeff, 2 of our donors who volunteered to join the grant review panel this year and review the 22 fabulous applications that we received and helped us shortlist those applications to the 3 that you'll see this evening. I'd like to welcome our foundation donors who've joined us this evening. We currently have 162 sub-fund donors. At the end of the financial year, the foundation fund was almost 26 million, just in front of the previous year. And as at today, we're sitting at 27.7 million. Of course, P500 is one of those sub-funds, and with the interest generated from the investment of P500, we add that interest to the grant each year, ensuring a long-term sustainable grant program. I'd like to welcome our chairman of the foundation, Hayden Tawney, and other board members, and sincerely thank them for the support of our P500 program. The Foundation's grant program for 2020-21 saw just over $1 million granted to 46 community organisations. And one of those grants was awarded to a shortlisted P500 applicant from last year who was unsuccessful last year. But within our grant round, we were able to provide a $30,000 grant to Ocean Mind to support young people with mental health challenges through their internationally renowned surf therapy program. And I'm also delighted that their CEO, Rachel, has joined as a P500 donor. So there's only one grant available tonight, but our 21-22 grant round will open early next month, and we encourage the unsuccessful applicants to apply. But I am actively seeking other funding options through engagement with trustees of private funds and through our local grant makers network. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Simon Loader, a principal town planner at Tract. And Simon, my sincere thanks to you for your leadership and your support and your encouragement, and for keeping us on track and keeping the team on task. So Simon, over to you.
Thank you, Gail. Appreciate those kind words. It's my absolute pleasure and honour to MC this evening's vote night. I'm going to try and keep this fairly short and sharp. I know everyone's sort of tuning in at home will probably want to get back to their evenings, so we will try and keep things moving along, but we've got some really amazing pitches to hear from our shortlisted community organisations tonight. So let me give you a sense of how tonight will run. Shortly, I'm going to introduce those lucky shortlisted groups, which will be followed by a video presentation, which will outline how those organisations will use the grant and how the local community will benefit. That will be followed by a Q&A session. And this is where we really want our donors, to engage with this event tonight digitally. And the way that you can do that, and the way you can ask a question, is to click on the blue hand button in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and you can lodge a question there. What we would ask is that if you could please nominate which organisation your question is targeted at, or if it's targeted at all organisations, let us know that as well. We can put the question to each of them. The important part of tonight is obviously the voting process, and that's being independently conducted by a company named TrueVote. Each of you, as our donors, should have received an email from TrueVote providing a link and some instructions on how to complete the voting process. We do acknowledge that some of our donors provided more than one email address for their donation. Therefore, if you haven't found the email in your accounts, we encourage you to check all of your active accounts, whether that be business or personal. And if you have not received the email from TrueVote, we'd encourage you to call them immediately on 1300 360 287. I'll give that to you again for anyone writing it down at home. That's 1300 360 287. Now, we hope that everyone has received their TrueVote emails, so hopefully there won't be too many calls being made, but that option is available to you if you need to. So without further ado, we are going to get into the video presentations for this evening. But before we do that, I do want to make a special mention to one of our committee members, Cormac Hanrahan, who kindly dedicated his time and effort to film and edit these wonderful videos, and hopefully you'll see the fruits of his work this evening. The first project that's going to be presented to you this evening is a joint application by BCYF and Headspace Geelong. BCYF is an independent not-for-profit community service organisation that's committed to collaborating with partners to deliver evidence-based prevention, early intervention and treatment programs with services supporting people experiencing a wide range of life problems. Headspace Geelong has been supporting the mental health and wellbeing of young people in the Geelong community for over 12 years. The Geelong Headspace site is one of the busiest in Australia and provides up to 10,000 visits and occasions of service to young people each year. So a huge reach. Just a reminder, when we run through these videos, you are more than welcome to put through your questions at any time. So we would encourage you that as you think of them, click on that blue hand icon in the top right-hand corner and ask your questions. And without further ado, here is the pitch video from BCYF and Headspace Geelong.
2020 has been a pretty shitty year. It's been really rough on all of us, and there's been a lot of changes. For me personally, it's been a really hard time, and I think it's really important to be honest with where we've been at. My name's Nicole. I'm part of the Youth Futures crew at Headspace Geelong. I'm also the media spokesperson. For me personally, I've been through a lot of depression and anxiety. Through depression, it's really hard to believe that there's others out there going through what you're going through. and it's really hard to have hope for the future. When I learned that there were other people going through what I was going through, I thought, oh, hey, maybe there is hope. Maybe I can get help. And that's why peer support, peer education program is so important. With depression, anxiety, and other mental illness, it's so easy to get stuck in your head and stuck in your own world. And that's why we need young people in there speaking to our other young people and telling us it's okay and that there is hope and how to get hope and how to reach out when you're struggling and how to support your friends. I'm now going to pass on to Sheldon.
Thanks, Nicole. Due to the isolation associated with COVID-19, as well as the tragic losses of young people to suicide in our region, now, more than ever, we need to find new ways of supporting our young people. The Youth Futures crew have established the Youth Peer Support Education Project, a new way of connecting our young people to good mental health strategies and resources. The project involves young people with lived experience of mental ill health, using that experience combined with evidence-based mental health information. The project is supported by BCYF as a lead agency for Headspace Geelong and an established partnership with Deakin University. You will be part of a new initiative and your funding will help us to make mental health education more real and relatable, offer increased amounts of that mental health education to the region. You'll help us to reduce stigma around mental ill health, support 2 young people in gaining employment, support all administration, marketing and engagement activities, and provide professional development training to our young people. Our peer education sessions will be delivered to over 2,000 young people throughout 2021. Our sessions are free and will be offered to the over 20 secondary schools and community groups in the Barwon region. Now I'll hand over to Ash to talk about the research.
This program is evidence-based. Education is a key preventative strategy in reducing mental ill health, particularly when it's targeted at high-risk groups, such as those aged 12 to 25. Outcomes will be measured to determine project success. Evidence tells us that in the short term, we will see an increase in knowledge around mental ill health and an overall increase in help-seeking behaviour. In the long term, we expect to see improvements in the confidence to seek help for mental ill health and reductions in the experience of mental ill health stigma. I'll now hand over to Nicole to wrap it up.
I want to thank P500 donors and the Geelong Community Foundation for the opportunity to share this program. If you could give young people the tools and the confidence to reach out for help, would you?
A wonderful pitch video there from BCYF and Headspace Geelong, and hopefully it's got you all thinking of some wonderful questions to send through the Q&A function, so get clicking on that blue hand icon. The next group that we're going to hear from is Feed Me Ballerine. They're a wonderful organisation who rescue food from hospitality outlets, food outlets, farmers and producers on the Ballerine Peninsula, Surf Coast and Geelong. And they deliver chef-made meals, pantry items, fresh fruit and vegetables directly to the community with no questions asked. Since starting with 2 people only 12 months ago, they've grown to over 100 volunteers and cooking over 4,000 meals a week. And since March 2020 this year, they've delivered over 100,000 meals to the community using food rescued from the region. So without further ado, here is the pitch video from Feed Me Ballerine.
My name's Anthony Woodbury, chef and co-founder of Feed Me Ballerine. From a young child, I grew up needing food security, waiting outside in front of Smith families with mum, trying to hide myself in the bushes from my friends and that kind of thing. So I know what it's like. I've got housing commission, rough areas in the middle of the country, growing up needing bread, milk, all that kind of stuff, eating Spam. Noodles every day, sugar on toast even. So when I had the opportunity through Lana to kickstart into Feed Me Ballerine, we've taken wasted food, I was her chef. My background is head chef of the wineries in Jack Rabbit Basil's Farm for many years. I've seen the industry and seen how much waste there is, and really wanted to utilise that when I went with Lana, and had the ability with Lana for her as my boss to take that and give it to people.
My name's Lana Purcell and I'm the co-founder of Feed Me Ballerine, which is a food rescue and food relief charity located in Ocean Grove. We are moving into Geelong and have secured a location in Newtown, and we need some funding to help set that program up and have the full expression of what we've been able to do in Ocean Grove be active in Geelong. Grant money would be used to help us source freezers and fridges and flooring and paint, and the entire space is needing to be completely set up so that we can activate all of our agencies to access that place, have it set up for our customers that will be wanting to visit us, and also to activate the food relief delivery system in Geelong with possibly another car or truck as well. So our program works by rescuing food that's destined for landfill from retailers, bakers, butchers, and the hospitality industry within the region that we're operating in. We have great relationships with cafes and restaurants, and anything that was meant to go in the bin or can't be used in service, we take back to our kitchen. It then goes through our kitchen to our chefs, and they repurpose it into meals, and incredible meals that you could never imagine could come from waste food. And then anything that we can distribute goes out to families, and anything that is true actual waste goes to our farm and feeds the animals that we have at our farm. So in the Ballerine, we're currently supporting over 700 families weekly with food rescue meals that we've created, as well as pantry and fresh items. We have 350 of those families located in the Geelong region, which has been the reason why we've become needed in this area, as well as a lot of call outs from the industry itself, from the hospitality industry, wanting us to rescue waste. So needing to move our program also into the Geelong region is going to help reduce the waste in our local businesses and save them money, and then we'll be able to increase the amount of people that we can help in the Geelong region. Success for Feed Me Geelong looks like a full expression of what we've done in Ocean Grove, where we are able to continue to grow our relationships with the other agencies in the area, work really collaboratively with them, address the needs of those feeling food insecurity in the region, get to them faster, get to them in a more succinct way, get more deliveries out into the regions that we're unable to access at the moment. We are servicing the area, however, there are people that want to come to us to kind of access our volunteer organisation and to help us help them come out of social isolation and access the community that we've got and the family that we've got within our volunteer network to help in the market or in deliveries or packing meals or turning soil at the farms. Your vote for Feed Me Geelong will mean that we'll be able to rescue more food within the region, within your neighbourhood. We'll be able to repurpose it in the kitchen into incredible meals to feed more people suffering food insecurity in the region.
Another wonderful pitch video from Feed Me Ballerine there. I think one of the things we enjoyed most as a committee was seeing the real variety of ways that each of our donor applications or applicants really approach their pitch videos. They're all quite different in their own unique ways, and I think you're going to find that with our next pitch video as well. This next project is a partnership between 3 Geelong-based organisations. Hope Bereavement, which is a community-driven partnership model offering free information support groups and counselling when grieving the death of a family member or sudden unexpected death of an adult close or within a family, and those experiencing loss after suicide. Bluebird Foundation, which is a community arts organisation creating and delivering quality arts programs that make a real difference in people's lives. And finally, The Compulsive, which is a film production company that creates evocative and honest films that tell unique stories and give a voice to the unheard assisting organisations to create strong narratives that turn complex issues into beautiful films. Once again, a quick reminder to use the blue hand icon in the top right-hand corner to ask any questions that you may have. We're really excited to see the questions that are coming through from our donors. So make sure you get in there and lodge your questions. And once again, without further ado, here is the pitch video from Hope Bereavement, Bluebird Foundation and the Compulsive.
You're about to hear a pitch that deals with the aftermath and grief relating to suicide. You will be hearing the words of some parents who have lost children. Please take care of yourself, and if after this you are feeling overwhelmed or distressed, reach out to family and friends or contact services such as Support After Suicide, Hope Bereavement Care or Lifeline.
A text message. A girl, barely a teenager. A family devastated. Death came out of nowhere. I wanted to protect my daughter from the hurt, but I didn't know how to do that. And then I started to think about how much worse it must be when a young person, can I say suicide? Should we be talking to our kids about this? Oh, something's telling me don't. It'll just put ideas in their head.
Suicide is an uncomfortable topic. Youth suicide even more so. Here in Geelong, we live in a small community, and chances are someone you know has been affected by youth suicide in an intimate way. It may feel uncomfortable, but we need to talk. Do you know that suicide is the leading cause of death among young people? More than disease, more than the road toll. Do you know that this year so far in Geelong schools, 5 boys have died by suicide? This is just 5 of the over 350 young people that take their own lives each year in Australia. Do you know that each young person who dies by suicide leaves behind more than 150 family members and friends grieving and struggling to understand the loss? In Geelong, the ripple effect of youth suicide has left thousands of us grieving. There is a stigma attached to suicide death: disconnection, fear, shame, guilt, isolation.
It's like he ceased to exist, like I wasn't his father anymore. No one says his name.
People avoid talking for fear of saying the wrong thing, for fear of doing more harm than good.
The silence is deafening.
At Hope Bereavement Care, we have conversations about youth suicide every day. We have conversations about unendurable pain and love and the importance of the continuing bonds we have with our loved ones. We support all those impacted the most by youth suicide: mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, grandparents, nephews, nieces, and friends.
No one wants to be a member of this club, but to know I'm not alone, to see others on the journey, well, it's changed everything.
I know nothing about suicide, but I do know something about art. Art has the ability to tackle difficult subjects. Art can start conversations and unite people in grief, in sadness, and anger, and in hope. Art can transform entire communities. This is why I started Bluebird Foundation. I know artists who can connect with people, who listen to their stories, feel their grief, and transform their experiences into art. I know filmmakers who can tell difficult stories, our story of Geelong and a story that will resonate with communities all around the world. And I've found the experts here in Geelong, the people who know about youth suicide and who understand grief, Hope Bereavement Care. Our project, Lighting the Path, will illuminate the personal stories of people who are reeling from the after effects of youth suicide. It's going to start meaningful conversations in our community. And our documentary will send a strong message to a far broader audience that the experiences of grief and loss after a young person has died by suicide can and must be openly shared to reduce stigma, to raise awareness, and to support those who are left behind. If you choose to support Lighting the Path, your donation will fund counselling and bereavement support to help people who've been impacted by youth suicide navigate the journey as they tell their stories. It will support local professional artists to work with the participants to transform those stories into art, and it will pay for a local filmmaker to document the project and create a film that will leave a lasting legacy.
And that was our final pitch video there from Hope Bereavement, Bluebird Foundation and The Compulsive. So hopefully you've seen the diverse range of offering from our 3 shortlisted organisations. And we're now going to begin our Q&A session. And hopefully you can see on the screen now that I've been joined by our 3 wonderful applicant organisations. But please feel free to keep sending through your questions as they might come to mind. What we often find in our in-person events is that it's often the questions that others ask that might drive a question for you. So please do keep sending them through and we will get through as many as we can. We have around 15 minutes in total for our Q&A session, so we'll try and move through the questions as quickly as possible so we can get to as many questions as we can. So, moving right into it, the first question that we have is for Feed Me Ballerine, and it comes from Melinda, and she asks, will the Ocean Grove location continue or is it being replaced with your Geelong venue?
Hi everybody, Lana here. It is 100% going to continue as is. We're not closing any locations. Ocean Grove is our headquarters and where all of our meals are made, and the other locations are just an extension so we can link other areas.
Wonderful. And we're going to roll right into another question for you, Lana, and that is a question regarding why do you think it is that you've grown so fast in the last 18 months?
I think what has happened is we've put out a way to access help that makes it easier for people that have felt vulnerable but have been too scared to ask for help before, or found it challenging to find places to ask for help. So we've broken down a barrier that allows them to access us, and they're feeling more comfortable doing it, even if they're in the worst place they've ever been before. We don't ask any questions. We make no judgments. We're not trying to sign you up to anything. If you ask for help, we show up.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lana. The next question is to the BCYF team. Being such a large organisation, are there other funding sources available to support the proposed Youth Futures Group project?
Hi everyone, I'm Grant, the manager at Headspace Geelong. The short answer to that question is the resources, the financial resources that support Headspace Geelong are incredibly stretched. We have such a huge demand for our clinical services at the moment, and we have a very small funding base that supports a really broad, complex service activity. We also have a high level of in-kind support from Bowen Child Youth and Family that fund a range of our activities from their own budget costs. So we're incredibly stretched, is the short answer. We are determined and we would love to find a way to resource this work regardless of the outcome of tonight. The reality is at this point in time, that's going to be really difficult for us to pursue at this time in this particular year.
Thanks, Grant. Appreciate that. Our next question goes to Hope Bereavement and Bluebird, which is, there are many ways to offer support, so why choose art? Are artists the best people to do this?
That's when I'll start. So I think, Bron Lawson from Bluebird, I think one of the really special things about art is that it opens up conversations that are sometimes difficult for people to have. It approaches subjects in new and complex ways. But I might actually ask Phaedra Frangos, who is one of the artists who will be working on this project, to kind of talk just briefly from her perspective as an artist about what she finds special about art. So I'm just going to bring Phaedra in.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Hi everyone, Phaedra Frangos. So I'm not sure whether you're aware, but in 1996, my younger brother, Alexander, suicided, and it was a completely shocking and unexpected event that ravaged our community. And basically since then, my whole journey as a movement artist has been influenced by that experience of grief because of the dissociation and the experience that happened to my body, to my brain, working through that. So I found that, talking about things wasn't as helpful as the movement and the creation that comes from that. So I feel that with grief, it's something that you can see something and it will move you and it'll make you feel something and help you to process that grief, which is locked up inside of you. And for those of us affected by suicide, the experience is that when you're affected by that, you're not actually being whole, you're not actually able to relate to those around you. So actually moving through that grief and having a chance to tell that story is just so powerful throughout the community. So it resonates not just for you, but also throughout.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next question goes to BCYF again. Can you please elaborate on the evidence behind peer education and how this approach is effective?
Yeah, hi. So my name's Ashley and I manage the research at BCYF in partnership with Deakin University. And for research perspective, we know that young people are less likely than other people or adults to seek professional support. And so what we know is that they're more likely to seek help from their peers, and that means that youth support workers provide that bridge between the young person and the clinician, and it just reduces those barriers to be able to seek help, which is really, really important. We know that hearing stories of lived experience can empower young people to make informed decisions about their health. And when people receive peer support, they report feeling more confident, they have increased levels of social support, acceptance. It increases their hope, and importantly, it increases their well-being and increases self-esteem through being able to talk to someone who's been through what they've been through. And education, we know, is a really key preventative strategy based in evidence.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashley. The next question, we're back to Feed Me Ballerine. And the question is, it sounds like a lot of the funding is required to physically set up your Geelong space. Is any funding required beyond the setup of the facility, and how will it be used?
Sorry, what was the actual question?
So the funding that you require, how much of it is required for things other than setting up your facility in a physical sense?
Well, we've already gotten a little bit further ahead in setting up the facility, and we've got some amazing help by Foundation 61 guys who are coming in and building things for us. And we're very sustainable. We don't just do food rescue. We're making our furniture out of pallets. We're using what we have. We're getting donations of paint. So we're a little bit further ahead in the setup. It's really needing to activate the space so that we can work with the agencies that we're working with already out of our Ocean Grove location, like Barwon Health and Watherong, and the ones that need to be closer to that help that we can offer.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lana. We're bouncing back to Hope Bereavement and Bluebird again. The question is, the idea of the film or documentary to chronicle the story is wonderful. How do you propose to get exposure for the film to reach as large an audience as possible?
Well, I'm going to hand over to both Bron and our filmmaker Benji.
Let's do that. I'll start and then I'll pass over to Benj, who's the filmmaker. So there are multiple ways that we are already thinking and engaging to get this film out into the world. There are very close ways that we can do that within Geelong through connections we already have and through Hope Bereavement Care, particular screenings and workshops around that. But more broadly looking to the national and international audience, There are film festivals that look for content and get them out, and we're really hoping, and one of the reasons why it's so important to engage a professional filmmaker with really solid experience here is that it will be a really interesting story that is told, and that potentially networks will even pick this up. Benj, do you want to talk from your perspective as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I think obviously it's the initial screenings locally, and then like someone like the ABC or SBS coming on board. So we're going to approach them as well, and film festivals as well. There's a lot of film festivals that we're looking at going to. So I think that suicide is something that affects communities all over the world. So while this is a very local personal story, it's one that would resonate with people all over the country and all over the world. So it's a kind of story that could easily be picked up in other places and viewed there. So, yeah.
Wonderful. So we have already been talking. Oh, sorry.
No, please. Go on.
We have already been talking to academics in the film world around building those connections, but we would also love to hear from anybody who has connections in the industry amongst, the donors. Like there's such a rich wealth of connections right here watching tonight. So we would love to hear from you as well.
Wonderful. And I might stick with you guys and ask another follow-up question, which is, can you give us a sense of how many people you think you will reach with this project? And I think that's more targeted around your actual art program rather than the film.
Do you want me to take that, Sally, or do you want to? No, you want me to? So there's kind of three elements to the project. So the most intimate element is where the artist will be working with people who have been bereaved by suicide, and the numbers that will be involved there are a little unclear, because it's something that needs to be offered to people, and they need to be willing and open and ready to engage with that journey. And that's certainly something that Hope Bereavement will be supporting in terms of their involvement. The next layer is the very local community, and that's through the viewing of these public art pieces that are created. And depending on where we are in our COVID world, they may be public events where there's an opening of a sculpture and a movement piece with a live audience, or it may be that they are those things are filmed and streamed, and there are other ways that we engage with our local community. So I'm imagining that would be in the hundreds and thousands. And then, of course, there's the much broader audience that will potentially be touched by the documentary. Sally, did you want to add?
I guess I just wanted to say that one of the things about doing an art project is that you can do a group of people that are bereaved around the same suicide or the same death. And the reason why that's really helpful is, and we've had recently a family just provided us some feedback about doing a creative art session with some of our staff. And because grief is such a personal journey, and it's so individual, and it's paced differently for every person, that sometimes the art project means that you can share where you are in the journey, and it's about that enduring love that you have for the person that has died. And sometimes when we think about suicide death, we forget that the love remains, and that relationship that you have to the person continues to grow. And the other really important thing that we are told constantly is that seeing other people along their journey is hopeful. When when you feel like there is no hope and you can't imagine feeling any different than you do today, reading stories, hearing other people that are bereaved. So we think that that's going to be really important. It's one of the most common things that both Support After Suicide Australia and Hope Bereavement are asked, is to give them stories from other people, from their lived experience.
Thanks so much, guys. To BCYF, can you please quantify again the numbers, details of the program, i.e. how many young people will you train, how many sessions does that equate to, and how do the young people in need access the service?
Yeah, sure. So we'll assertively kind of advertise the service to all schools and community groups within the Geelong region. So accessing it will just be a matter of contacting us and booking in with the young people. we're hoping, and we've kind of worked this out through throughout the school year, on average, a day worth of sessions a week in a school. So the young people would get that full day employment, and then we'd probably reach 4 to 5 classes in the school, and it works out to be about 1,800 to 2,400 young people throughout the year, which we'd be really happy to reach. Obviously, if COVID continues and we're presenting over Zoom, I mean, a positive to that is we can reach more young people and do a few classes at once, so it would be likely higher than that. Our goal is to do it face-to-face. We really want our young people to get in the room with young people, listening to their stories. And then finally, in terms of training people up, the group that we run, the Youth Futures crew, we offer training to everyone in that group. So there would be probably about 10 to 14 young people that would go through public speaking training and training around sharing their story safely. And then we would hope to provide employment for 2 of those young people to speak casually, which may end up throughout the year because 2 young people would need to run each session, that we have 3 or 4 of those young people involved in that.
Wonderful, thanks. We actually now have a question for all, so I might stick with BCYF for a moment. The question is from Chaz. He says, I understand that Feed Me relies on volunteers for its day-to-day operation. Are the other organisations run by volunteers or paid employees? So BCYF, we might stick with you and you can answer that. What's your involvement in terms of volunteers versus paid employees?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, BCYF and Headspace obviously mainly made up of paid employees, but I'll ask Nicole to speak to the YFC, who are the group that are running this project.
Yeah, so I'm one of the members of the Youth Future crew, it's called, and we're a group of young people who completely volunteer our time to engage the community in mental health understanding and reduce the stigma around mental ill health. And most of us, including myself, have lived experience of mental ill health, and we're all extremely passionate about helping other young people in our communities.
Wonderful, thanks. And for the Hope Bereavement Bluebird guys, what about your involvement with volunteers versus paid staff?
So we're both really small organisations that have small staffing teams. Hope has a really big partnership kind of model. So, we leverage off our relationship with Red Nose Australia and also Jesuit Social Services. And so we have some of our staff are kind of provided, that's the partnership's way of contributing to Hope. And we do have a number of what we call peer support workers or peer workers that facilitate the groups. I'm sorry, my staff are sitting back going, that's not what you call them. Facilitators that are facilitating a lot of the lived experience groups, and that's some of them are facilitated by staff and a lot of them are facilitated by people with a lived experience. And then we have this just amazing volunteer kind of thing that sits in the background. We have the men's shed that make little memory boxes for when people lose children to be able to put keepsakes in. We have the Rotary clubs and the Freemasons that come to our events, and when we're doing our Walk of Hope or remembrance events, and cook barbecues and do all of these things. We have a couple of people with lived experience that go to the hospital, and all the 3 hospitals, and look in the cupboards and make sure that they've got information if you lose a child. So we have a good combination.
And from Bluebird's perspective, as Sally said, we are a very small organisation. We don't have any employees. Our whole governance structure is run by volunteers. Our artists are paid to facilitate the programs that they work in, but we do also have an amazing team of volunteers who do all sorts of things. This particular project, Lighting the Path, we don't anticipate that there would be volunteers directly involved with the most intimate part of the project, because it is such a specialised field, and we really need people to be safe and looked after in that space. But absolutely, we'd be engaging volunteers in the public events and the marketing and the broader parts of the project.
Wonderful, thanks. And Lana, I think we heard in the intro I gave that I think you've got over 100 volunteers working for you guys now, and it's quite a small organisation in terms of the sort of core team, but you have quite a volunteer support network.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 100 volunteers. I did another induction today of another 14 volunteers. We have some volunteers donating and working 6 days a week for us. We don't have any paid employees within the organisation. We grew so fast, so hard that my business in hospitality, which is why this all started, shut down. And so we're on JobKeeper, and we have no plans to reopen our business and work as much as we can within the charity and become sustainable enough that we can go forever, really.
Wonderful. Good to hear. Well, we might stick with you guys. We've got another question for you, and that comes from Miranda. Is there any support offered beyond meals for families suffering food insecurity, even just a referral to other services that may be able to help them longer term?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have relationships with Bethany, with the Salvation Army, with Vinnie's, with Salvo Connect. We're working with Barwon Health, BCYF, all the organisations we can refer to, and we've gone so far as to help people get out of crisis situations. It's not food that is the problem. There's something else in their lives that have made them get into a space where they are struggling to feed themselves or cook for their kids or put lunch boxes together. So we definitely have a really strong relationship with so many organisations, and we put them in wherever we need to and refer them and get them out there. But you can go.
Yeah, for example, emergency kind of style thing. I rocked up at the hotel and seen a dad. It was from Salvation Army referral saying, could you drop food off? I went to the place and I seen this father had his kids on 2 single beds. There was 4 kids. I couldn't walk away from the situation, so I started making phone calls, and we got together with Vinnie's and Salvation Army. We got them into a house the next day. So they were in a holiday house for 8 weeks. These guys are now back at school. They hadn't been at school for a year because the mother had a breakdown and she walked away, but we got back into school. He's now working full time. He's got the kids full time. All it takes is you just got to ring up and ask. There is always something you can do.
We do what we can.
That's brilliant. Thank you. We have a few more questions, and I'm conscious of time, so we might go for one final question here, which is for Bluebird from Lisa. When do you expect to have the art program available to the community and the documentary completed?
Yeah, so we're really hoping that the art part of the project will happen in the first part of next year. We know that there have been 5 young people who are connected to Geelong schools who have died by suicide this year, and we know that the impacts of COVID have meant that people have not been able to come together to grieve, whether they are intimately connected with those people or if they're in the broader community and have been touched by those events. So we know that it's really important for that to happen quickly. Benj, do you want to talk about the filmmaking process and how long you would expect that part of the project to take?
Yeah, so I guess the film would be finished soon after the project's finished. But the beauty of going to film festivals is that if you go well at film festivals, it generates a whole bunch of publicity. So it'd probably be first going to the film festival circuit, and once it's sort of done that loop, then television and then just like online eventually, I guess, would be the spot so anyone can access it. But I mean, it's all good and well to put something up on YouTube or Vimeo today, but if no one knows about it, no one sees it. So it's a case of trying to do the film festivals and television and getting that publicity around it outside of the immediate local screenings with the community here. To generate that interest to extend its life, basically.
Sure. Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm so grateful to each of our applicant organisations for answering these questions so honestly, and so grateful to our donors for sending through so many brilliant questions. This is often the most engaging and interesting part about our vote night is the interaction between our donors and the applicant organisations. So I thank everyone for jumping into this process wholeheartedly. Now we move into the most important part of the evening, which is the voting process. So as I mentioned before, tonight's voting process is going to be conducted by TrueVote. Each donor should have received their email from TrueVote with your instructions and your link on how to vote. Just to assure everyone who is voting, all votes are submitted and they're anonymous and secure. You must choose carefully. Your vote is final and can't be changed. And once you do submit your vote, you should get a confirmation receipt and a receipt number. So that's important that you do see that to know that you've lodged your vote correctly. The wonderful staff at TrueVote are on standby to provide you with any assistance you need. So if you have any technical issues or you're having problems casting your vote, please call them on 1300 360 287. We're going to be going on a short break while you vote, and we will have a break slide up on the screen, and that's going to have that 1300 number for TrueVote. So again, if anyone needs to refer back to that number, it will be on the screen here. And happy voting. Good luck. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully everyone's been off and successfully cast their vote for this year's P500 grant winner. Just while we're waiting for TrueVote to finalise the count and send through the eventual winner, Gail and I thought we might just have a little bit of a chat about, I guess, the success of the program over the last couple of years. Obviously, Gail started back in 2017, 4 years ago now, with a really sort of grassroots concept about how people can be involved in philanthropy. What can you recall about that first year?
Yeah, well, I guess it was a really great opportunity for the foundation to expand its donor base and connect with a whole new group of donors. So there's a lot of collective giving programs starting across Australia and all across the world, really. So it was just a great opportunity to bring collective giving to Geelong and be able to provide a unique opportunity for donors to support the community. So it was just fantastic to engage a group of volunteers in the P500 committee to help me get that program off the ground. So it was the Geelong Young Professionals Network where we first went to pitch our idea of collective giving, and that's where we started or acquired our first group of volunteers to help us get it underway. So 2017 was the first year when we had a grant of $22,500 that went to Gateways, and they bought 2 high-low beds for their respite facility in Ocean Grove. And I've had the pleasure of visiting that facility and seeing how it makes life easier for the carers and the children to access a high-low bed when there is a significant disability. So that was a really great outcome. And then in 2018, we had a grant of $37,500 that went to Good Cycles.
I think we upped it to about 150 donors that year, didn't we?
Yeah,
we did. A jump from 100 the year before, I think, wasn't it?
It was just 90, I think, the year before.
90, yeah.
Yep. And so Good Cycles, they've got a facility just off the Little Mallup Street Mall. And they use the bike as the tool to implement what they call their pedal empowerment program, which is an education and training program to support young people to reconnect them to work. A really great initiative using the bike as the tool to train and educate. So that was a really good outcome. And then in 2019, last year, the Sanctuary were the recipient of a $52,500 grant, where we got to 180 donors, I think, last year. So we're just shy of that this year. And that grant went to support the Sanctuary with a specialist grief and loss counsellor. So we've had 3 fabulous grant opportunities. But I think more than that, we've had some fabulous shortlisted organisations that have been able to pitch their program and I think educate people about the fabulous organisations that we have in this community doing incredible work in our community. And you've only got to look at the 3 applicants tonight, providing fabulous programs and support to our community. And it's great to be able to showcase the social side of the Geelong region to our donors, and the educational component of our program is just as important in my mind as the giving and the granting. So, and I'm hoping a lot of the organisations that get involved, also get other benefits by being able to access more volunteers potentially and other layers of in-kind support after donors seeing and hearing about their program.
And I think, somewhat unsurprisingly, in the year of COVID, we had a record number of applicants this year at 22. I think it was 16 the year before. There are a lot of community groups out there looking to run some brilliant programs to support the community during this pandemic. I think you and I remarked at the start of the year that it might be a challenging year, but I know from the committee's perspective, we were absolutely delighted to get to that 174 mark, so close to that number we got last year. And it just goes to show that even during a tough time, the Geelong community's really rallied around this program and continued to support it. It's been absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, it was a bit of an unknown, wasn't it, Simon, in terms of, whether or not we would get the support during COVID. But I think for a lot of people, they were looking to be quite specific about where they were going to give their donation. And I think that's the great thing about P500 is that donors have the opportunity to engage in it, be a part of it and make the decisions about it. So I think that's why the program really does appeal to a lot of donors. So when there's limited funds available to donate, I think when you can get involved in a collective giving program like this with a group of other like-minded donors, it makes a lot of sense. And of course, when we can have an event together and celebrate together in the one room, obviously the networking and the engagement has also been a fabulous outcome of our opportunities. Yeah. So we'll hopefully do get back to that next year.
Absolutely.
So we should. I should just say there were a few people that contacted me during the break wanting to vote. There might have just been a little bit of misunderstanding about who could actually vote tonight. And it is only the P500 donors who have contributed $500 to the campaign who have the capacity and ability to vote. So apologies for any misunderstanding for people who did register and come along today thinking that they could vote. But we would love to have you on board next year if you'd like to contribute to the program and be a part of this along with our other P500 donors and get involved as a voter. We'd love to have you involved next year.
Yeah, it's been brilliant to have other people beyond donors join us this evening, and really that's what we wanted from tonight, was an opportunity to have people experience what is really the culmination of 12 months worth of hard work by the committee and the shortlisted application donor organisations as well. So, it's really good to be able to spread that message to people who haven't been involved before. So, like Al said, hopefully we see your names on the list next year as part of our donor list. So that would be brilliant. And I think one of the things we decided to do this year as well, Gail, was we didn't have a really targeted, topic or focus for the grant. We really went with something quite broad in community wellbeing, and I think that really helped us cast a wider net around the organisations who could apply as well. I think that was a really powerful thing to do as well.
Yeah, I think it was evident it's really diverse. So what we do as an organisation is we structure a grant review panel. So we have representatives from the P500 committee that are and it's really led by the Geelong Community Foundation Grants Committee. David Lindsay, who chairs that committee, chaired our grant review panel. And then we invited 2 P500 donors to be part of that grant review panel. And Margaret and Jeff jumped on board this year. We then provided all of our grant review panel members with the applications and the criteria that we consider when we're reviewing our grant applications. Things like, impact and outcomes and need, sustainability, really important questions that we do a bit of a deep dive into in the grant application process. Our grant panel members then score every application, and that's, is the starting point where we all come back together and then review those scores and discuss and debate differences to be able to get down to that shortlisted the shortlisted 3. And I must admit, this year we came to consensus pretty quickly. Which isn't always the case, either with P500 or the Foundation Grants Committee, because there are so many deserving, organisations with great programs. We'd love to be able to support them all, but there just isn't the grant funding to go around. And that's why we continue to fundraise.
That's right. And I think, unsurprisingly, those things around need, impact, both scale and the sector of the community, they're all the types of questions that we always see come through from our donors at our vote night. And I think it shows the level of consideration that our donors are giving to who their votes are going to. And to that point, I'd be encouraging anyone who's tuning in tonight and casting their vote that is going to be involved with us again next year to consider putting up your hand to be on that donor review panel. It's a really interesting process to see the way grant review process works, and it just gives you that ability to be involved in this program to a greater degree than what you are at the moment as a donor. So as important as you are, it really the next step to get involved in that process as well. So it's interesting.
So Simon, I think we're getting close to a result.
I think we are.
So just bear with me while I just double check. Let me just check the result. Just bear with me.
Looks like the email's in.
Yep. Okay, Simon, I think you've got the result.
I do indeed.
Leave that to you to announce.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gail. It's with the greatest of pleasure that I get to announce that the winner of the 2020 P500 grant is Feed Me Ballerine. Would everyone please join me in a virtual round of applause for Feed Me Ballerine? Well done, guys. Lana and Anthony, congratulations. Hopefully you're off mute. Would you like to say a few words and say what this means to you guys in terms of how you can expand your program?
Yeah, thank you so much. It absolutely means the world to us. We have such a hardworking organisation that has just come from nowhere. We're making such a big impact to so many families, and it's just going to allow us to expand and help those that are calling out that we're struggling to get to. So we're going to reach so many more people, and we are very surprised. We really didn't think that we were really in for a chip, to be honest. Really, thank you so much to the donors. It means absolutely, it means the world to us.
Absolutely. I can't even say it, but weight's lifted off our shoulders immensely. Yeah. Absolutely immensely.
No, it's incredible.
That's wonderful to hear, guys. It's our pleasure. Congratulations again. We're so happy for you. I would like to just take the opportunity now to acknowledge the wonderful team at Geelong Community Foundation, including Gail and Jeanette and Tony and the entire board for their unwavering support for the P500 initiative. Ultimately, it's their support for this program that makes it all possible and allows us to reach all of you. As you all know, P500 is about the power of collective giving, and it's also powered by the collective giving of our amazing community members whose passion and tireless effort makes this initiative what it is, along with all of you, our wonderful donors. So I'm super grateful to our committee for all their hard work this year. And finally, thanks to Little Green Corner and Austin's Wine for their generous support of this evening's event. They kept us all well fed and hydrated, and thanks to those of you in our donor base who placed an order with them. They're two great local organisations, and it's wonderful to support them. And I'm just going to throw to Gail for a couple of final words. Over to you, Gail.
Thanks so much, Simon. And, my congratulations to the guys at Feed Me Ballerine. Doing some incredible work on the Bellarine and in Geelong and down on the Surf Coast. commiserations to BCYF and Hope and Bluebird. But as I said at the outset, I'm working on finding funding for those programs because, you know, they're two fabulous initiatives that deserve to be funded, and I'm hunting around for additional support. And obviously I'll be talking to them to make application in our major grant round, but I've got a couple of irons in the fire in terms of a couple of other funding streams, so working hard on that. So from me at the foundation to our donors, sincere thanks for your support in 2020. It has been so incredible to have you on board in such a difficult year. We really do hope that you connect with our 2021 campaign. But more importantly, just help us spread the word about the nature of collective giving and how powerful a $500 donation can be to the community. Look at the difference that we've just been able to make to Feed Me Bellarine. You know, they're going to get their Geelong program off the ground quick, smart, and in this current climate, going to be helping a lot of people that perhaps haven't asked for help before. So amazing the difference that $500 can make. So please join us in 2021 and spread the word and get some friends on board. I think there is a little survey at the end of this evening that you'll have the opportunity to complete. We would love your feedback about tonight's event, what worked for you, what didn't. You know, we may use this online voting process next year. We'll obviously review that, but we would really appreciate your feedback so that we can continue to improve on the P500 campaign. And my final thanks to the P500 committee. I just love working with you guys. A fabulous team. We have a lot of fun and we make a difference. So thanks to you, and thanks for joining us tonight. Good evening.